You know, we all think we know the story of Faust, the brilliant scholar who sells his soul to the devil. But what if that's just the surface level story? What if it's not really about simple temptation at all, but a calculated, almost surgical process of spiritual predation? Well, in this explainer, we're going to peel back the layers. We're putting this whole story on the operating table to see how a soul is actually taken apart piece by piece.
So here it is, a 6-step framework for a complete spiritual takedown. It goes from environment to the target, the predator, the bait, the trap, and then the end. Now, you'd probably think the action starts with the predator, right? With Mephistopheles showing up. But what's so fascinating here is that the process begins way before that. Today, we're zeroing in on what is, without a doubt, the most critical piece of the whole puzzle. Step 1. How the perfect environment doesn't just set the stage, it actually creates the vulnerability that makes the entire gambit possible in the first place.
Right. So the setting of this story isn't just some dusty old backdrop. It's an active ingredient in the whole disaster. We're talking about a very specific time and place that creates a perfect storm of spiritual and psychological anxiety. It's like a complex lock just sitting there, waiting for someone to forge the right key. And here's that environment: Reformation Germany. I mean, you have to imagine, this wasn't just a time of quiet debate in universities. This was a total pressure cooker of existential dread. Everything, grace, damnation, your own salvation, was suddenly up for grabs. These weren't just abstract ideas. For the people living through it, this was a matter of eternal life or death. And this quote just nails it. The era produces this very particular kind of anxiety, a specific, high-stakes existential dissatisfaction. This isn't just feeling a bit down or lost. This is a soul-deep crisis. And that's the whole secret, isn't it? A predator like Mephistopheles doesn't have to create the weakness from scratch. He just has to be smart enough to spot it, to isolate it, and then to weaponize it. Okay, so in an environment totally soaked in this kind of anxiety, who's the most likely person to crack? Who becomes the perfect mark for this kind of spiritual trap? Well, let's meet our target. The profile is what the source material calls the Rasputin blueprint. So picture this: a brilliant, charismatic scholar, maybe even a disillusioned cleric, who's already playing fast and loose in that gray area of spirituality. His own internal panic about salvation is a perfect mirror of the chaos in the world around him. And his intellectual pride, well, that's his fatal flaw. He truly believes he can outthink the devil. In short, he's the perfect victim. So we've got the lock, that anxious environment. We've got our target, the proud, disillusioned scholar. Now we just need the key. And this is where Mephistopheles shows he's not just some generic tempter. He's a master strategist. He performs what our source calls psychological surgery, crafting a totally custom, two-pronged attack designed for this one specific soul. And here's where the strategy just becomes crystal clear. It's a brilliant breakdown of his assault. On one side, he offers Gnostic certainty, the promise of absolute, forbidden knowledge that will finally silence the scholar's crippling spiritual doubt. Then, on the other side, he dangles the illusion of freedom, a way out from under the thumb of the church, of God, of anyone. It's a classic pincer movement, one attack for the mind, the other for the ego. And this just shows you how perfectly those two temptations work together. Certainty gives you freedom from doubt. Freedom gives you freedom from authority. For a man who feels trapped by both, this combo is it's irresistible. It's a perfectly engineered on-ramp that leads directly and inevitably to making the deal. Now let's get to the transaction itself. We tend to romanticize the pact, see it as a moment of high drama, but it's way more useful to see it for what it really is: a cold, hard, non-negotiable, and deeply predatory spiritual contract. Think of it as a dangerous, high-interest loan. Yeah, when you strip away all the fire and brimstone, the actual mechanics of the deal are just terrifying. Let's look at the terms, shall we? Step 1, the principal. That's what Faust gets up front, a finite period of gain, knowledge, and power. Then, step 2, the collateral, the single most valuable thing anyone has, the infinite value of their soul. And that gets us to step 3, the imbalance. The difference in value between the loan and the collateral is absolutely catastrophic, and that's the whole point. That signature in blood, that's the point of no return. But this isn't an accident or a moment of weakness. It's a conscious choice. He's signing a spiritual loan with terms so predatory that they can never, ever be repaid. He is willfully trading the infinite for the finite. And just like any predatory loan, default isn't a risk, it's the goal. The foreclosure was built into the deal from the very beginning. The good times are temporary, that illusion of freedom shatters, and then, inevitably, the debt comes due. A tragic foreclosure that leads to an eternity of servitude. And it's this inevitability that really makes the story hit home. So why does any of this matter? Why take apart this old story in such detail? Because when you see the mechanics, it stops being a spooky fairy tale and becomes a powerful, timeless warning, especially for our own age, which, let's be honest, is defined by its own special kinds of anxiety. The big takeaway here really boils down to two huge warnings. The first one is pretty obvious. It's a warning against heresy and hubris. The danger of pride, of thinking you're the smartest person in the room and can operate outside the rules. But the second warning, that one's a bit more subtle. It's a warning against what the source calls spiritual and financial illiteracy, which is really just a failure to understand the true value of what you're giving away, your soul, your integrity, and to recognize when the price of a deal is just too damn high. Ultimately, the power of this story, why it sticks with us, is a pretty simple and chilling truth. The most effective evil isn't some big monster offering you the world. No, the most effective evil is a strategist. It's someone who studies you, who understands you, who finds that one precise, secret, empty space in your soul, and then offers you the perfect key to fill it. It's easy to judge the scholar in the story, but this framework, this process, it's universal. It's all about finding that one high-stakes dissatisfaction and offering the perfect solution. So the final question really isn't about Faust. It's about us. It's about you. What's in yours?